You know that gnawing feeling when someone asks, "So, what do you do?" And your brain short circuits because you're simultaneously a graphic designer who codes, writes poetry, studies neuroscience, and just started learning woodworking. That feeling where you think there's something fundamentally broken about you. Plot twist. You might be the most valuable person in the room by 2030. While everyone else was busy becoming specialists, going deeper and deeper into their single lane, you were out here collecting skills like Pokemon cards. And for years, the world made you feel weird about it. Jack of all trades, master of none, they'd whisper. Dilettante, they'd call you. Career advisors looked at your resume like it was written in hieroglyphics. You need to focus, they said. Pick one thing. But here's what they didn't tell you. The world just changed its mind about what valuable looks like. And it turns out your brain's been preparing for this moment your entire life. See, for the last century, society praised the specialist. The world was predictable, almost like a chessboard. Success meant going a mile deep in one narrow field. Psychologists call this a kind learning environment. It rewards repetition, expertise, the single deep pillar of knowledge. But that's not the world we live in anymore. We're now in what experts call a wicked learning environment. The rules constantly change, feedback is delayed, patterns aren't obvious. Think about the difference between a golfer and a firefighter. A golfer operates in a kind environment. The rules never change, feedback is immediate. A firefighter works in a wicked one. Every situation is new. The rules are unknown, and their specialized knowledge might not even apply. In a wicked world, the hyper-specialist develops blind spots. And you've been training for wicked your entire life. There's a term for people like you, M-shaped professionals. Think of the letter M as a shape. The opposite of the M-shaped person is the I-shaped person, the specialist with one single deep pillar of knowledge. Then there's the dash-shaped person, a mile wide and an inch deep. That's the trap many fall into, knowing a little about everything but having no real foundation. That lack of depth creates anxiety because you have no ground to stand on. But the M-shaped professional, that's different. Picture it like this. Maybe your first leg is software engineering. You go deep there. That pays the bills. But your second leg is user psychology. You go deep there too. And those horizontal bars connecting them, that's your interest in design, business strategy, neuroscience. Suddenly, you're not just another unfocused developer. You become the person who builds products that people actually love to use, because you understand both the technical constraints and what makes humans tick. That combination is rare. That combination is valuable. And the World Economic Forum just proved it. Their Future of Jobs Report 2025 dropped a bomb. 39% of workers' core skills will change by 2030. Not evolve, change. The skills rising fastest: creative thinking, resilience, flexibility, agility, analytical thinking paired with the ability to synthesize across domains. Translation: the future belongs to people who can pivot between worlds. But let's be honest about what this actually requires. You can't build all your pillars at once. That just leads to being a mile wide and an inch deep, the dash-shaped person. And that creates anxiety because you have no ground to stand on. The secret is serial mastery. You pick one pillar and commit to it for a season, maybe 6 to 18 months. You build one leg until it's strong, until you've mastered the core 80%. Not world-class expert level, just fluent enough to solve most problems without the instruction manual. When your curiosity in that area feels satisfied, you make a conscious choice. This isn't quitting like a dabbler running from difficulty. This is strategic quitting. It's a graduation. You deliberately choose to begin your next pillar. The anxiety comes from the choice itself, right? Which pillar first? Here's the secret. Lower the stakes. You're not choosing for the rest of your life. You're choosing for this season. Pick the one that creates the most stability, the one that can become your good enough day job. Or pick the one with the most energy around it right now. Just pick one. Because here's what happens when you move between disciplines. You're not just collecting skills. You're training your brain in something called far transfer. A specialist uses near transfer, applying a skill to a very similar problem. But you see the underlying structure in one field and apply it to a completely different one. A person who understands the branching structure of a tree's root system might suddenly see a better way to organize a company's database. A musician who understands harmony might look at software code and see a more elegant structure. That's far transfer. It's seeing the music, not just the notes. And all those seemingly random interests you've collected, they form the very library of metaphors you'll pull from to create breakthrough insights. This is what AI can't do. It can't stand at the intersection of technology and human emotion and figure out what actually matters. It can't look at a technical problem and solve it with creative thinking borrowed from a completely different field. It can't prototype an AI-driven experience that feels human because it doesn't understand both the code and the story. That's M-shaped work. That's you. Now, I'm not going to pretend this path is easy. Being M-shaped means going from expert to beginner over and over again. Your career path looks more like a Jackson Pollock painting. But here's the thing about the straight ladder. Remember Kodak? Blockbuster? Specialists thriving in a rapidly changing world is like being the world's best typewriter repairman in 2024. Technically impressive, economically irrelevant. Meanwhile, you've been training for uncertainty this whole time. Every time you dove into a new interest, you were practicing adaptability, building cognitive flexibility. And you might need to reframe something else, your day job. Many great polymaths had stable jobs that didn't drain them. Einstein was a patent clerk, the stable ground that allowed his mind to wander the universe. A low-drain job leaves you with surplus mental energy to invest in building your other pillars. A high-passion, high-stress job might sound exciting, but if it consumes 110% of you, there's no room for the exploration your brain craves. The final piece, you need a system. Your brain is a high-output idea factory, but your working memory is like a small workbench. If you don't move finished ideas off the bench, there's no room to build new ones. When you get fascinated with medieval architecture for a week, take notes, put them in Notion or Obsidian. Then, when the obsession fades, you can let it go without guilt. 3 years from now, when you're working on a web design project, you might stumble upon those old notes and realize the structure of a cathedral is exactly like the structure of this website. That's the moment of magic. But it only happens if you capture the dots so you can connect them later. The companies that get this are already hiring for it. They're not asking what's your specialty. They're asking what unique combination of skills do you have? Creative technologists who can code and imagine, strategists who understand data and human behavior, leaders who navigate technical complexity and organizational change. 170 million new jobs will be created by 2030, but they won't be created for people who can only do what they did yesterday. They'll be created for people who can learn, adapt, synthesize, and bridge gaps that algorithms can't touch. Innovation doesn't come from textbooks. It comes from stealing an idea from architecture and applying it to software, from using storytelling to explain data, from understanding psychology well enough to design technology that serves humans. That's idea synthesis. And it only happens when you have multiple spikes of knowledge to draw from. So, if you've spent your whole life feeling scattered, unable to commit to just one path, maybe you've been preparing for exactly this moment. Maybe your supposed weakness was always a strength the world wasn't ready for yet. You're not a dabbler who lacks grit. You're a scanner, a potential polymath. Your brain is designed to be a bridge between different worlds of knowledge. Pick your first pillar. Build it with focus. Use your job as a stable platform, not a cage. Build a system to hold your endless sparks of curiosity. You were never meant to master just one thing. You were meant to be the person who can see how everything connects, and the world is finally ready for that. Welcome to the M-shaped future. You've been training for this your entire life. If this hit home for you, please subscribe. And if you want to support these deep dives, hit that join button to become a channel member. I would genuinely appreciate your support.